Hey everyone, how are you? In this video, we are going to solve the lead code problem of the day, and the problem is minimum number of people to teach. In this problem, we have a social network which consists of m number of users. So we have m number of users and some friendships between the users. So these m users will have friendships between them. Not all users will be friends with each other. We are given friendship data separately. Now two users can communicate with each other if they know a common language. So let us say there are two users A and B. They can only communicate to each other if they know a common language, right? Now you are given an integer n, we are also given another integer n, and an array languages. So we are given languages and an array friendships. So we are given three different data: n, which is the number of languages we have. Basically it's written here there are n languages numbered from 1 to n. So if n is, let us say, 5, it means we have the availability of 1 2 3 4 5 5 different languages. We are given another array languages, which is going to tell us that languages at any index I is the set of all the language any ith user knows. So we know that we have m number of users, right? And we have n number of languages. Every data in this languages array is going to tell us about a particular user, that user knows how many different languages. So the length of the languages array is going to be m, that is the number of users. We are going to see an example of it. Now friendship, this friendship array, it is telling us, or it is denoting a friendship between two users, user u and user v. So friendships array contains the data which is going to tell us that a user u and a user v are friends with each other. In the problem, we can choose one language, and strictly you need to understand that we have to choose just one language out of the n different languages and teach that language to some users so that all friends can communicate with each other. All the friends from the friendships array, they can communicate to each other. We have to return the minimum number of users we need to teach so that everyone can communicate to each other. Not everyone, but all the friends. Not all the m users need to communicate to each other. Only the friends needs to communicate to each other. Now it also says that friendships are not transitive. It means that if there is a person x who is a friend of y and y is a friend of z, it doesn't guarantee that x is a friend of z. So if user 1 is a friend of 2, 2 is a friend of 3, it doesn't mean that 1 is a friend of 3, right? Now let us try to understand one example and then we are going to solve it. And it is very important for us to understand the examples. That is going to give us a lot of information on how to solve the problem. So we are actually going to understand both the examples. Now let us focus on the example number 1. When the value of n is equal to 2, if the value of n is equal to 2, it means we have two different languages. Now what are the different languages which a particular user know? So basically the languages array is going to tell us how many users we have. So for example, the languages array is this one. Let me copy it here. So it is telling me that we have three number of users. We have user number 1, then user number 2 and the user number 3. User number 1 knows one language, which is language number 1. The user number 2 knows one language, which is the language number 2. And the user number 3 knows two languages. So the user number 3 knows about language 1, language 2. Now what are the different friendships we have? These are the different friendships we have. We have three users, right? User number 1, user number 2 and user number 3. The first data is telling me that user number 1 and user number 2 are friends. The second data is telling me that user number 1 and user number 3 are friends. And the third data is telling me that user number 2 and 3 are friends. Now we have to ensure that all these friends, they can communicate to each other. One can communicate to 2, one can communicate to 3 and 2 can communicate to 3. Now let us try to solve it one by one for each of the friends. So if you talk about the first friendship between user number 1 and user number 2, we can see that user number 1 knows about language 1, user number 2 knows about language 2. So they do not have a common language based on which they can communicate to each other, right? So we either have to teach the user number 1 the language which the user number 2 knows, or the user number 2 the language which user number 1 knows, right? So we can teach the language 1 the user number 2. So this way the user number 2 will know two different languages, language number 2 and language number 1. Now the first friendship is fine, right? The user number 1 who knows language 1, the user number 2 who knows language 1, they will be able to communicate to each other. But at this point we have to say that we have taught the user number 2 the language number 1, right? And now the question says that we can just choose one language and teach it to some users. So if we choose to teach the language number 1 to, let us say, the user number 2, so we can just choose this language number 1 to teach it to some other user if required. Now let us try to solve it for other friendship. Friendship 1 and 3, that is the user 1 and 3 are friends. Now tell me, can they communicate? So user number 1 knows language number 1, user number 3 knows language number 1 and 2. So they can use the language number 1 which is common between them to communicate, right? So this is fine as well. And the user number 2 and 3, they are friends as well, and they know the common language. The user number 2 knows about 2 and 1, the user number 3 knows about 2 and 1, right? So they actually know two common languages between each other, so they can use any of the language and they can communicate with each other. So all the friendships are fine. We just have to teach the user number 2 the language number 1. So here the output is going to be 1 because we teached just one user about a language. We need to find out the minimum number of users we need to teach. That's the output we need to give. Now let us see the example number 2 as well, for which the output is 2. Now for 1 and 4, if you see, we have user number 1 and user number 4. 1 knows language number 2, the user number 4 knows language number 3. So they need a common language to communicate, right? So let us choose that we teach the language number 2 to the user number 4. If we teach the language number 2 to user number 4, so now user number 4 knows about 3 and 2, right? These are the different languages he know, and the friendship 1 and 4 is fine. So we basically taught user number 4 the language number 2. Now what about the next friendship 1 comma 2? 1 knows the language number 2, the user number 2 knows the language number 1 and 3. Now they cannot communicate with each other, right? But we know that we can teach the language number 2 to some users, right? The thing is, we can just choose one language and teach it to some users. We have already chosen the language number 2 and taught this to user number 4. So now we cannot use some other language to teach. We have to use the same language to teach. So we are going to teach the language 2. And if you talk about that user number 1, he already knows about the language. So you don't need to teach him. But the user number 2 doesn't know about it. So now you taught the user number 2 the language number 2, and 1 and 2 can communicate using language number 2. Talking about 3 and 4, they have a common language. 3 and 4 have a common language too. They are fine. Talking about the 2 and 3 friendship, the user number 2 knows about language number 2, the user number 3 knows about the language number 2. So they can communicate with each other, and in the list we can see that we have to teach two users some languages to make them talk or communicate. So the output in this case is going to be 2. That's the minimum number of users you need to teach a particular language so that all the friends in the friendship data can talk to each other. Now let us try to solve the problem programmatically. Our first step is going to be to find out what are the different users who need to be taught. That is, let us try to process each of the friendship. Talking about the friendship between 1 and 4, you can see that it is not fine as of now because they do not have a common language, right? So what we can do is we can actually have a user's data which is going to have 1 and 4. 1 and 4 needs to be taught a common language, right? That's for sure. Now talking about the next friendship 1 and 2, if you talk about 1 and 2, they also do not have any common language, right? So we can say 1 comma 2, they also need to be taught a common language. Now what about 3 and 4? 3 and 4, they also need to be taught about a common language, right? So 3 and 4 do not have a common language initially, so we have to teach them some common language. Now what about 2 and 3? So 2 and 3, they can communicate to each other, so it is fine as of now, right? Because they have a common language which is language number 1. Now the thing is guys, if you see the users data, it contains all the user IDs 1, 4, 2 and 3, right? So in the users data we have 1, 2, 3, 4, all the 4 friends who needs to be taught a common language. Now you might be confused that why do we need to teach all the friends a common language? Because in this case, if you will notice the data, what I'm doing is I'm saying that 1 and 4 need to be taught a common language, 1 and 2 need to be taught a common language, 3 and 4 need to be taught a common language. So they are separate, they are not related to each other, but they are related to each other, and let me tell you why. They are related because we can choose one language. We can just choose one language, and it is written in bold. You will have to understand this. We can just choose one language and teach it to some users so that all the friends can communicate to each other, right? So all the friends in this list 1, 2, 3, 4, they have to know a common language because we can only teach a common language, right? We have to teach them the same language. So what we can do is we can basically store this data 1, 2, 3, 4, which are the list of users who need to be taught a particular language so that they can communicate with each other. Again, they all do not need to communicate with each other. They only need to communicate it with their friends. But since they have to be taught a common language, they are the user who cannot communicate with their friends. So we are just keeping them in a single data, single list we can say, or single set, and we are going to teach them some common language. Now what are the different languages we have? We have 1, 2, 3, right? So these are the different languages. After we have this data 1, 2, 3, 4, what we can do is we can actually try with all the languages, language 1, language 2 and language 3, to see that which language, if you teach to all users, will require you the least number of users to teach them. And if you are confused with my statement, let me repeat this in some other form. Basically, we have a list of users who need to be taught a common language. These are the different languages we have. we are going to try with each of the language. That if I try with language number 1, so I want to know how many users will I need to teach this language, because there might be a chance that some users already know about language number 1. So we just need to check which language we can teach to all the users, so that we actually require to teach the least number of users. So let us do it. If you talk about language number 1, you can see that the user 2 and the user 3 already knows about language number 1. So you only need to teach it to user number 1 and user number 4. So if you choose the language number 1, you will have to teach 2 users. What about 2? If you teach the language number 2, you will have to teach it to user number 2 and user number 4, right? So again, if you teach the language number 2 also, you will have to teach it to 2 users. And for language number 3, you will have to teach it to user number 1 and user number 3. So you will have to teach the language number 3 to 2 users. So you can see that either language you choose, you will have to teach it to 2 different users. So 2 is the minimum number of users you will need to teach a common language, so that all the friends can communicate with each other, right? And that's all we need to do. So first of all, let me create a users set. We are going to store all the users who needs to communicate with each other, but they do not have a common language. Now let me convert my languages, this languages array, it is a list. Let me convert every data in the languages array, which is a list, to a set. This will allow us to have a faster lookup. It will make our code a little bit fast, little bit optimized. So we can say for every data, for every lang in languages, convert it to a set of lang, right? So now the languages is still a list, but every data in the languages is a set. Now let us run a simple loop for u comma v in friendships. So we have a friendships array, right, in which we have two data. You and we are the friends, right? Now first of all, let us check that do the friends have any language in common. If they have a language in common, we don't need to process these two data, because they can already communicate to each other, right? So simply what I can do is I can say if from the languages data, if languages of u minus 1 because the indexes starts from 0, right? So for user number 1, the index 0 is telling me that these are the different languages this user know, right? So that is why u minus 1 dot, and then I can use a method is disjoint. It is a set method. I will tell you what it is for. First let me write the complete code. So we have to check that do these friends u and v have any common language. So we can say that if languages of u minus 1 dot is disjoint with languages of v minus 1. So here this is the set of all the languages the user u know. This is the set of all the languages the user v knows. Now this is disjoint function checks that do we have any common data between them. This is going to return true if we do not have any common data. If we have any common data between these sets, the set number 1 is languages of u minus 1 and the set number 2 is languages of v minus 1. If these two sets have any common data, then this is going to return false. But if it returns true, it means they do not have any common data. They are disjoint. Yes, they are disjoint. Then we need to process them. We need to actually push these users into the users set. So we can say users dot add u and users dot add v. We have to add them to the users data, so that later on we can process them and teach them a common language, so that they can communicate with each other. Now the thing is, if not users, there is a logic that if there are no users, that is if there is no data in the users set, then we don't need to process further. We can directly say return 0. The reason is if there is no users who needs to be taught any common language, it means already all the friendships are fine. They have a common language to communicate. We don't need to process further. We can say return 0. 0 number of users need to be taught any language to communicate. But if we are able to proceed further, if it means we have some users who needs to be taught a language, taught a common language. So let us create a variable result, which is initially going to be infinite. We are going to just store our result of the number of users, the minimum number of users who needs to be taught a common language. So for now, let us keep it as a very high value. And now let us run a loop to check for each of the languages. So we can say for lang in range of 1 to n plus 1. We have n number of languages, right? It is given in the input itself. So we are going to check for each of the language. And now let us try to find out if we teach this particular language lang to all these users, then how many users we actually need to teach, because some users might already know this language, right? So let us create a data already know that these are the users who already know about this language. So we can say for user in users, right? We can run a loop for user in users, and basically we can create a list of it. So let us create a list of this for user in users. We can say that if the current lang, if this particular lang is in the languages set of that particular user, so we can say if lang, if the current lang is in the languages of the current user is user here, right? So we can say user minus 1, again for the same logic that these are the user ID and the indexes will be 1 less, because the indexes starts from 0. So we are saying that for all the users in the users data we have created, check that is this current language already in their languages set. If they already know about the language, then we can say 1. It means we are storing 1 for every user who knows about this language lang. And now we can just take the sum of this. So what it is going to calculate? It is going to calculate the number of users who already know about the lang, right? So how many users do we actually need to teach this particular language? So we can create a variable need to teach, and this is going to be equal to the length of users. Basically the length of users is going to tell me these are all the users who needs to be taught a common language. Already know is all the users who already know about this language. So we can say the number of users we need to teach is length of users minus already know. And now we can say result is equal to minimum of current value of result and need to teach. So simply this is going to calculate what's the minimum number of users we need to teach a particular language, and that is what we need to find out, right? And finally we can say return result, and that is going to pass all the test cases. You can submit this and this is going to pass all the test cases. You can see the runtime is really good. The memory used is fine as well. We are actually using some memory, right? We are using some sets. So guys, we have solved this particular problem. And talking about the time complexity of this problem, you might say that the time complexity would be O of friendships plus languages, because we are running a loop for all the friendships and then we are running the loop for all the languages. But I would say this is actually O of friendships multiplied by languages, and the reason is within this particular loop you can see that we have a logic, right? Now this logic, the is disjoint logic, to find that do we have a common language between two users, the complexity of this is going to be O of languages in the worst case. This particular loop is running for friendships multiplied by languages number of times, so that's our time complexity. That's our worst time complexity, I would say. And the space complexity is going to be O of friendships plus languages, because we are storing the number of users as a set and we are storing the number of languages as a set as well. So it is going to be for friendships and languages, O of friendships plus languages. So guys, I think we have solved this particular problem, and that's it for this video. If this video has explained you everything you need to know about the problem in depth and the solution approach in depth, then make sure that you hit that like button. And if you are not subscribed to my channel as of now, then make sure that you subscribe to the channel as well. And I will see you guys in the next video. I want to see you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching this one.